This episode of the Inner Hoe Uprising is also available on YouTube for your viewing pleasures. Hey, YouTube. If you like looking at people while they podcast, then you can click the YouTube link in our show notes and gaze along as we talk our shits. Welcome to the Inner Hoe Uprising, the podcast about sex, love, and dating from the perspective of me, Sam, one black, non-monogamous, pansexual, feminist hoe who lives in New York City, is socially distancing, and is wearing a bright-ass wig, bright-ass brows.
Ooh, we love to see it. And me, Rodeka, a fat, black, polyamorous, pansexual pessimist who probably cries too much and uses humor to distract everyone from the fact that we are currently in the darkest timeline. I'm also wearing a wig. It's red. I got glasses. You know, it's a good time.
You're hitting them with a little razzle-dazzle.
A lot
of razz-dazz over there. Easy deesies. Every episode of the Inner Hoe Uprising works like this. Myself and my lovely rotating co-hosts talk about sex, love, and dating as it pertains to current events in our lives and yours. And occasionally we hit you with interviews with insightful folks. And we also talk about current events in the world. Duh. This episode, we'll be talking about my new favorite podcast, all about infidelity in Queens, New York.
Ooh.
The laws jeopardizing the well-being of survivors on college campuses. Ooh. Black women flying planes out here. Zoom.
Hey.
A new resource for domestic violence in quarantine. I don't have a soundbite for that, unfortunately.
No.
Dating a narcissist revisited, and healing and starting therapy, and much, much more.
And if you would like to follow along with the conversation had in this podcast on social media, you could do so by using the hashtag Inner Hoe Uprising so we can see it, and the hashtag PodIn so other people can see it. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can do so at Inner Hoe Uprising without the G on Twitter, Inner Hoe Uprising on Instagram and Facebook, or you can join our Facebook group by searching Inner Hoe Uprising, CUMMUNITY. That is community, but it's a fun way of saying it. And you head there to join it, and you can head to innerhoeuprising.com to sign up for weekly goodies via our newsletter, pay a hoe, or check out merchandise. Just shouting "come" in the middle of what I'm saying. I don't know how to keep steady after that. Come. Yeah, come.
Is that what you do? Is that what you do when
That's
you're
what I do. As
coming?
soon as I'm about to reach a climax,
that's what you
I
do
say,
when you're coming.
I'm coming.
Yikes, man.
I whisper it seductively sometimes.
If you want to pay us to speak virtually at your school or conference about sex positivity, black feminism, podcasting, coming, or other kinds of topics that we discuss on this here show, or if you would like us to host a consent, pleasure, or dating virtual workshop for your organization, we would love to. So to book us, you can send us a line to ihupodcast@gmail.com. Now we're getting into a segment that we like to call Hoe of the Week. It is where we shout out the homies who have supported IHU in the past week. Hoes of the Week get special nicknames, and the game, if they choose to participate, is to guess the meaning behind their nicknames. We got a lot of Hoes of the Week this week, and I fucking love to see it. You know, like when I'm about to like start work on this podcast, I go and I look for validation in different places to like fuel me when I don't feel like making a cup of coffee. That is exactly what the Hoes of the Week do for me.
Aww.
You guys are literally
fuel.
You know? You're like controlling my puppet arms, and I'm just like, put together a podcast. All right, so this week we got Shonda W., whose nickname is CW Network, who became a patron. Thank you, CW Network. We have Marissa, aka Candy Yams, who became a patron. We got Maya C, aka The Animator, who dropped us some money on PayPal. We got Juju Bay from A Little Juju podcast. Your source for all things African traditional religion and spiritualities. Check out A Little Juju podcast. I can't give Juju Bay a different nickname on top of Juju Bay, though. So
that is the nickname.
Yeah, that is your nickname. Thank you, Juju. Juju became a patron. We got Paida, whose nickname is The Educator, who sent us a grip on PayPal and a lovely note. Thank you so much, Paida. I'm sorry. Thank you so much, The Educator. Then we got Carla T, whose nickname is Banks, who upped their pledge on Patreon. Then we got Duvante F, whose nickname is Gummy Bears, and I love Gummy Bears, just so you know. Duvante became a patron on Patreon and left us a very sweet message. And we got Vicky G, aka Slicky Vicky, who became a patron on Patreon. Then we've got our Apple Podcast reviews. If you would like a nickname in this Hoe of the Week segment and you're leaving us a review, please include your first name in your review. Last week, Janie left their name and I didn't see it. So I was just like, your name is my pussy power. And I feel so bad. And I'm so sorry, Janie, but your nickname is now Pussy Power Buff Girls. Maybe that's not the best nickname.
Oh my God.
It was 2:00 in the morning when I was thinking about these. I
It
should have just
is
been like Buttercup or some shit like that. Whatever. Maybe it's in flux. Maybe JD
yeah.
for one next week.
You
Then we
need one.
got Reggie, whose nickname is Reggie Rocket. And finally, we got Lakila, who is Lakiki Squeaky.
I like that one.
I like that one too. If you would like to be a Hoe of the Week and get a cool nickname, here are some things you can do. You can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can shout us out in an article you've written, or you can shout us out on social media. These are non-monetary ways you can support us. We love monetary and non-monetary support, and we understand that in these uncertain times, monetary support is not feasible for many folks. So please do not spend your bottom dollar on us. Put you and yours first. But if you can spare some shiggity change, we would like for you to donate to us on PayPal at paypal.me/innerhoe, or become a patron on Patreon at patreon.com/innerhoeuprising, or purchase some merchandise. There are 4 t-shirts left. They are literally right behind me. And
grab them.
Links to do, just through the computer screen. I'll just throw some back at you.
Take them.
The links are in the show notes to do all of those things. Also, reminder, if you do become a patron on Patreon, for $2 a month, you can participate in things like our Slack chat and our patron-only movie nights. And for $5 a month, you can join our Monday night Zoom hangouts. Shout out to the folks who joined us for this past week's Zoom hangout and patron-only screening. So that includes Erlini, T. Ray, Yay to Wee Wee, Tougher Than Nigerian Hair, and OKKK. And shout out to everyone who joined us a few hours ago at the time that we're recording this for our open screening of Jezebel, which was very, very fun.
It was.
Doing that. Yeah. All right, now we're going to head into Self-Care Tip of the Week, a segment where we give you some tips on how to care for yourself. How are we caring for ourselves this week, Rod?
So, if you live in Michigan, they're doing something with Uber that I think is pretty incredible. But we also touch on domestic violence in general. Domestic virus, Jesus. And we talked about it a couple episodes ago, kind of speculating that it would increase incidents just because people are home. But it turns out that obviously now that we have more data, it is happening. So Uber has partnered with the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence, MCEDSV. It's not really shorter, but that's the acronym, to provide free transportation for survivors of domestic violence and sexual violence amid the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. So Uber donated $25,000 worth of free rides to MCEDSV, and like we speculated, the coronavirus lockdown has led to a double-digit increase in domestic violence around the country. Yeah, as many shelters are either understaffed or closed, so they're forced to stay home with people who are their abusers. Chicago reported 15% increase in domestic abuse-related 911 calls. Boston reported a 22% jump. New York has seen a surge in the number of visits to the domestic violence resource websites, New York City Hope, jumping from around 45 visits to 115 visits per day. They don't have the statistics on the 911 calls, but that is how they're kind of keeping track of it going up or people kind of paying attention to it. So the free rides will also help existing clients to access essential needs. And obviously, if you need to go somewhere like a hotel or anywhere away from your abuser and you're able to get out, you can use Uber, and you call Uber, or not Uber, you call MCEDSV, and they will hook you up with a code, and then that's how you redeem the information. There's also other resources that we always like to share. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. The crisis text line, text HOME to 741-741. And the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. And that information will be in the show notes. the show notes.
That will be
Yes.
in the show notes and the description
Yeah,
below
but
for
that's a
people on YouTube.
self-care if you are in Michigan, but in general, just if you are experiencing or you're home with an abuser and you're able to like contact anyone, just make sure you know that there's resources out there for you. And I'm sorry.
For sure. Where do people who are in Michigan access the Uber rides? Or is that just if you get in contact with the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and
Yes,
Sexual
you have to get
Violence?
in contact with the Michigan Coalition, and then what they do is they send you a unique code and you would redeem it through Uber. It's a
Gotcha.
little more steps, but just to verify, obviously, so people aren't like abusing it, because you can't just, it's not like pressing a button. It's like you have to go through that, and then you'll put it in and then it'll waive the ride to where you're going.
Okay. I will put that
Yeah.
in the show notes as well for this episode. Yeah, we definitely send love and light and the utmost safety to all folks who are being impacted by DV right now. Definitely check out the links in the show notes. And thank you for that, Rebecca.
Of course.
Yeah. Now we're going to get into a segment that we like to call Bae of the Week. And that's usually where we shout out people who we find attractive. And that is a little bit strange because this person is related to you, but they are still worth being shouted out. So let us know what's going on.
Absolutely. Yes. So my babe of the week is Judine Phillips. That is my sister's partner, somebody that I live with, but they're also just somebody who is dope and trying to get into the airline industry, specifically as a pilot. So she was recently accepted into the American Airlines Cadet Academy, but the financial responsibilities are holding it back. It's actually extremely expensive to become a pilot. Obviously, the payback is better later on, but initially it's just like brutal. She's applied for loans, but unfortunately has been denied several times. So there's less than 1% of commercial female Black pilots. When I was a flight attendant, there was one female pilot when I actually went there, and she was not a person of color. So I've actually never even seen a female Black pilot. So they're very few and far between. And she wants to be a representative for others to follow what they're passionate about and not be discouraged by the lack of representation. So she actually has a GoFundMe going on. The link will be in the bio, but she also has her Cash App, which is Passion for Flying. But yeah, I would definitely support if you can. Obviously, during these times, it's not easy, but if we want to talk about representation and we want to talk about like making sure that we have people who represent us in positions of power, because the airline industry is a position of power, we need to start, supporting when we can. So I definitely wanted to shout her out, and anybody who can help, I'm sure she'd appreciate it. So it's awesome.
Shout out to Judine, son.
I know, right?
Becoming a pilot out here. Yeah, definitely.
She was also
go for it.
I was gonna say she's always been excited about it, but like she got surprised with flying lessons and kind of just took to it. Because you know how you can be like in theory, be like, yeah, I'm about this, but then when you get behind the wheel, you're like, what the fuck? Nah, she was definitely
driving
like
a
having a great
plane.
time. Yeah. And she's like, now I want to do this as a career. So that's incredible to me. So I was just like, yeah, this is dope.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's really, really dope. And yeah, for sure. It's like, oh, why don't we ever see Black pilots? Why don't you ever see Black women pilots? Because the shit is expensive and we get paid, I don't even remember what it is, 75 cents on the white man's
cents
dollar.
to a dollar.
Like
Yeah.
Definitely support.
I know. It's just like one of those things you have to deep sigh for where you're like, man, another thing, huh?
Another thing. Hate things. But yeah, all of Judine's information will be in the show notes for this episode. Now we're going to get into a segment that we like to call Fuck That. It is our current events segment, where we talk about current events. Oh no, why is it doing that? How come I'm speaking and it's showing you? Ah, fuck.
What?
Damn, man. Can it even hear me? Damn.
I was like, I can see you fully and I can hear you, but I don't know what the fuck is happening.
I don't think I can do that other big thing. That sucks, man. Let me try it again. I see myself highlighted. Damn. Wow. Zoom. Racism. Anyway, it's not racism. Whatever, man. Well, you guys will just see me in the little box, and whenever Rebecca talks, she'll be in the big box. Okay.
If I breathe, you'll just see me above everyone.
This is a segment that we like to call Fuck That. It is our current event segment, and today we are given a content warning before we start because this segment will include mentions of but no descriptions of sexual assaults. Please check the show notes for time codes if you choose to skip this segment. Please check the show notes for time codes if you choose to skip this segment. That's a really hard sentence to say, apparently. Anyway.
A lot of shoes.
Right, yeah. This week we're talking about Betsy DeVos rules bolstering rights of students accused of sexual misconduct on college campuses. So I feel like this deserves some background. We haven't really talked very much about Title IX on this show before. And there were some areas where I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I felt like if I've been on every episode of the show and I don't know what's going on, it's worth getting into some background. So,
if
you're unaware, Betsy DeVos is the United States Secretary of Education here in this country. During her tenure, she's been changing rules of Title IX, or tell you what Title IX is, a law in the Education Amendments Act of 1972 that states no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So typically, Title IX was most directly associated with sex-based discrimination in college athletics programs, but it applies to all programs and services being offered by colleges or universities. And it can include, at this point, anything it can include anything that is being made to make you feel unsafe because of harassment or assault, and your school not doing anything about it, thus hindering your right to an adequate education, because these kinds of barriers are still discriminating you from participating in school the way that you would normally participate in school if you weren't being harassed. So in the early 2010s, after numerous students came forward with stories about campus sexual assault and filed complaints about the universities for Title IX violations and protests and student-led movements, the Obama administration did some things. These are things that you might remember. So the Columbia University protest from a student, Emma Solkowitz, who was carrying their mattress.
That they were raped on. Well, sorry, I hate to use the word, but they were.
That is actually what happened. That is actually what happened.
Yeah.
And or that was what it was supposed to symbolize, and that they had to carry that weight every day on campus because they had to see their assaulter or abuser, and the university doing nothing. So that was one of the widely spread or widely visual moments of students being protesting these kinds of actions. So as a response to that, Obama administration did some things. Those things include, and these are direct quotes from a New York Times article by a journalist named Erica Green, which I'll link in the show notes. The Obama administration defined sexual harassment broadly and held schools liable for episodes they knew about or reasonably should, in quotes, have known about. They asked schools to adopt a preponderance of evidence standard in adjudicating cases and discourage cross-examination and mediation between accusers and the accused. So
That's great.
Yeah, exactly. That would be
so really they're not sitting in a room. It's not a mediation topic.
Exactly. Between the two students, basically.
Exactly.
And no other third parties actually mediating. So the second thing that wait, no, that's not true. Is it? Victims' rights groups that the approach. Okay. Yes. So as a response to this, what the Obama administration did, this is another quote, victim rights groups said that the approach shepherded in a new era of accountability at colleges, putting schools on notice that Title IX did not only address equal access to sports teams. The Obama administration found a pattern of cover-ups and rampant mishandling of Title IX proceedings in both higher education and elementary and secondary schools, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And it initiated I didn't even think about it like that or know about that. And it initiated high-profile investigations at schools, carried that carried the threat of losing federal funding, which is the big thing, right? Nobody wants to lose the fucking money that they're getting.
Yeah.
Yep. Since then, we all know that the Obama administration is not the current administration. Critics have said, and even then, before the administration swapped out, critics said schools felt pressured to side with accusers without extending sufficient rights to the accused. And dozens of students have since won court cases against their colleges for violating their rights under the Obama-era rules. And since he's been in office, the Trump administration has called for policy changes that roll back those Obama-era rules, like everything. I feel like we talk about this every week at this point. There's a new thing where it's like, oh, this is something that was put in place 4 years ago, 8 years ago. Let's roll it back.
Yeah.
Here, that's all the background. Here's the story as it stands right now. So last week, Betsy DeVos issued final regulations on sexual misconduct in education. There are a lot of regulations. I'm talking about in this segment those that pertain to colleges and universities, although there are also regulations that pertain to primary and secondary schools, and there are also mad regulations. It's like changing of law. I'm going to hit on 4 of them. So one of the regulations is that one of the new regulations adopt the Supreme Court definition of sexual harassment as unwelcome conduct that is so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive, quote unquote.
So severe.
So yeah, it's really narrowing the definition of sexual harassment, and that can get really dangerous and weird, where it's just like, oh,
exactly.
Like, who is even the arbiter of that? And somebody who's like, oh, I don't think that was severe enough, or oh, they were just
exactly kidding. That's why when I read that, I was like, that makes it like, who's defining so severe? Who's like, oh God, okay, oh man, all right.
We are at that oh God point of the story. The new regulations also require colleges to hold live hearings during which accusers and accused can be cross-examined to challenge their credibility with the help of advisors and lawyers. More on that later, because that's a little bit interesting.
Okay.
The rules also limit the complaints that schools are obligated to investigate to only those filed through a formal process and brought to the attention of officials with the authority to take corrective action. So not other authority figures like a residential advisor or residential assistant, for example. And I thought that was harmful because I used to dorm, and I used to dorm for a little bit. Yeah. People are really close to their RAs, and your RA is like a live-in student who you go to when there's issues. So like, if something happened to me on campus, that's probably the first person that I would go to, not only because like you're my age, oftentimes you're my gender, if we're like in non-co-ed dorms and things like that.
Yeah.
And like, if something has just happened to you, you want to talk to people who make you feel safe, and something like that has just,
and who are close.
Yeah, right. Who
like
are close.
Literal and physical proximity.
That's so true. That's so true. That is a really good point. So yeah, no more, you can't go to the RAs.
Whoa.
Lastly, and not last of all, but last of what we're talking about in this segment, schools will also be responsible for investigating episodes only said to have occurred within their programs and activities, not, for instance, apartments not affiliated with the university. So let's say one student assaults another student in an apartment, and both of these folks are going to the school. So it is a Title IX violation because, oh, this happened to me from this student and it's not being addressed. The school does not have an obligation to actually investigate it further. Yeah.
Or like if they're at a party that happens off campus.
There's a little bit more about that later that I'm actually going to get into right now, but it's like if there's no affiliation whatsoever for those.
Got it.
Yeah.
Fuck.
This is not good. Judging your responses, Rebecca, your response, I'm sure your response is listening and watching wherever you are, but it actually could have been worse, which for me is like just an interesting look at the law, which is why I want to talk about it. And then also it's a bit uplifting because like, oh man, it kind of takes you out of the dystopia mindset, I guess. Like,
yeah,
could have been a lot.
I need to get out of that, man. Everything is just like, fuck.
I think thinking about a plan to make things better helps me. And this is an introduction to one of those things, sort of. So
I need that focus, and it feels good. So let's do that.
Cool. All right. Better territory. So this is another quote from that New York Times article. Miss DeVos's initial proposals released in November 2018 elicited more than 120, I still cannot pronounce this. Why do I have such a hard time with comments? 120,000. It just sounds so weird to say.
I know.
120,000 public comments and prompted hundreds of meetings between education department officials and advocacy groups. And this is interesting because a couple of episodes we actually spoke about a different legislation and public comments there, and we were all like, what the fuck is public comments?
Yeah.
Today I do have the answer. So a public comment is a comment to a federal agency providing relevant feedback to a proposed rule or regulation under consideration by the government. A comment may be made either online or in print. That is a definition from the immigrant rights group called Boundless, and there will be a link in the show notes from Boundless describing more about what public comments are and how you can make some on proposed laws in existence right now. She's going to talk about it a little bit later.
Nice.
Yeah. If you're not talking, can you mute your mic so that the weird my glitch internet thing doesn't happen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
You said my mic or Zoom?
Your mic. Well, sorry,
okay.
Your Zoom mic.
Oh, okay. Because I'm about to press this button right here.
Yeah, your
gotcha.
Zoom mic. Just your Zoom mic.
Okay.
Cool, thank you. So DeVos's proposal thankfully changed a bit after that 120,000 public comments and hundreds of public meetings, and those changes include the fact that the department amended provisions that would have allowed schools to ignore virtually all accusations of misconduct that occurred off campus, which means that if an alleged assault took place in a frat or sorority house, a building owned or controlled by student organizations, the school would not have been obliged to investigate, but they amended it so that included buildings owned or controlled by student organizations. Yeah.
That was my main question, because I don't know if that's from seeing movies or just reading enough articles. It happens so often at these parties, at frat houses. So my first thought was excuse me,
right?
What if I'm not affiliated with this frat, but I'm attending one of their parties?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's good. Awesome.
Yeah. Another thing that the comments and meetings pushed towards was that now the new rules prohibit students from questioning each other in personal confrontations, leaving that to advisors and lawyers. And a hearing officer must first decide if questions are even relevant in the first place, and questions about a person's sexual history are generally not.
So reading that means that at one point in time, this could have happened.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And that could have been some bullshit, bro. That could have been the worst thing of all time. Just imagine how traumatizing that would be.
I can't. It would literally be me sitting there, some person that I'm accusing, talking about my sexual history or just going at it, anyone without somebody represent. I'm glad this is a thing. Okay, so there you go. This is another moment where I'm okay, I'm glad it didn't go this far.
Shout out to the fucking public comments, bro.
Yeah, for
real. That's the only public comments that are good. Instagram comments be the worst.
That's true. They're the worst things. They're look, you suck. That's it. This is look, y'all suck. We need to talk about this.
Public comments are the king of comments. The queen of comments. Fuck monarchy though. Okay, so once again, why am I including this? So I feel everything can feel like shit and helpless, but honestly, I this real life Sam, I actually do truly believe that we have the agency in various ways, and we can actually exercise that agency, and this was a way. This was an example of a way. For now, it's actually clipped for this way because the public comments are closed, and now this is actually being put into effect. So it's clipped for Title IX for a little bit, at least until an administration change. But as we spoke about a few weeks ago, coming up on Friday, May 24th, the public can comment for 60 days on the proposed removal of explicit protections for LGBTQIA people in healthcare programs. And now, like, we know what the fuck public comments are. We know
So we
what's
have
like.
time.
We can comment on this shit,
they
bro.
work.
Exactly.
We know.
We know. Yeah. So I'm going to link in the show notes the episode where we spoke about that specific legislation, and I'm also going to link in the show notes a whole little sheet about from that organization Boundless about what the fuck public comments are, in case you forgot or want to know more, because I really didn't say much. So wrapping up, there was a quote in the same New York Times article that I found interesting, and I just want to like muse on it a little bit. So the quote. Meredith Smith, the assistant provost for Title IX and clery compliance at Tulane University in New Orleans, said she was worried how her students would respond to the rules, including those accused of misconduct. They're going to see this incredibly legalistic way of responding to harms that they've experienced, including being accused of horrible things, and instead of thinking of us as people who can help, we're now here to litigate, she said. I thought I was working in civil rights and ensuring access to education, but instead I'm going to be running a courtroom. And her saying that made me think of two concepts that I'm honestly not very familiar with, but I've just heard about in activist spaces here and there, just like in time. So it makes me think about restorative justice and transformative justice. And I'll give some quick definitions. So transformative justice is a process where all individuals affected by an injustice are given the opportunity to address and repair the harm. And restorative justice is a system of criminal justice which focuses on the rehabilitation of offenders through reconciliation with the victims and the community at large. And I think in a world, right, yeah. So in a world so lacking in full understandings of things like what actual consent looks like at a time, college age, where students are just like out here causing harm. Like, I'm not excusing the harm, but like we know that like harmful things happen, and it's because people were never taught what the fuck actual consent is. Or why the harmful things that they're doing are even wrong in the first place, or they know that it's wrong, but they've never been reprimanded, or no one's ever said, like, you don't do that, like, you don't get to do that. So I think many times, what am I trying to say? It seems like transformative justice would be a beneficial approach in this situation, where it's like, okay, we can actually sit these two people down and be like, okay, number one, somebody was harmed. Let's focus on the person who was harmed. Let's assuage their harm. Let's make them feel better about the situation in ways that we can. Number two, you did harm. Do you understand what the fuck you did? Because there's no recidivism. Like, if it's just like, you did this, like, what's stopping these people from doing it again?
Yeah.
Especially if they're like existing in a culture where it's just like half the people who are talking to them are like, you didn't do nothing wrong in the first place. She asked for that, blah, blah, blah. He asked for that, blah, blah, blah. So it just feels like like something like transformative justice, at least in the way that it exists in my brain, would be really good in life. And I could see it like quickly breaking down in a society. I'm just talking about America, in a society of 300 million people where there's a lot going on. So it's like, are we going to have the time and resources to like sit down every single time and be like, okay, how do we mitigate this? Let's teach this person, blah, blah, blah. But college is kind of like fake life. Like, it's like pre-life. Like, it's like adult life.
And it's in such a small enclosed space.
Exactly.
That it's possible for every instance.
It seems possible, and it seems like such the good time to do this, because these are people's formative years, and it's like, oh shit, I did cause harm. I was a terrible person in college. Then I learned, and I'm not being a terrible person anymore. Or something terrible happened to me in college, then my community supported me, and I don't have to go through life with this trauma like hanging on my spirit. What the fuck, bro? Like,
it goes both ways. That's amazing.
I know that I'm smart, but I don't think I'm that smart that's like, how did y'all not think about this beforehand?
Yeah, like, it's not like you're coming up with like the theory of relativity or
right,
anything.
Yeah,
it's like
it's not
information.
Some genius shit. It just seems like, can't things just be this way, bro?
I wish, and I hope, honestly.
It's not
over.
Of the question. It's not out
exactly.
Of the question. Yeah. So that's just something I wanted to think about for a little bit. And then wrapping up, so there are more aspects of the Title IX regulation that are being changed, and also aspects that, like I previously said, apply to K through 12 schools. And it's all a very complex set of changes. And I didn't want to spend time talking about all of them on the show because it's challenging for me to understand what all of the changes mean. I don't think I have the range to really unpack it like that. So I'm putting links in the show notes that unpack the changes further for you to read outside of the show. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Educate these people.
Yeah. Why
Love
not?
to see it.
Why not? All right, let's move on to a different segment. That segment is something that we like to call Fuck Me, and it is about our sexual, romantic, and dating lives, and sometimes just our lives. So, Rod, what's going on, bro?
And mine's pretty, I like to update you guys. Obviously, that's what I'm here for. So I think I touched on getting into therapy last time I was on, but I didn't talk about now that I've actually had a first therapy session. And I think it was cool. I don't know. It's hard for me because you guys talk about going to therapy, and obviously I know other people who have gone to therapy, but I don't know what my expectations are going into it other than knowing it's not going to be some type of miracle thing. But I don't really talk to people about stuff in detail, so it's very weird going into it. So my expectations, I was trying very hard to put them to the side and be all right, just be open-minded or whatever. I got matched with someone who was an older white woman, and at the time I just wanted to start talking to someone, so I didn't really care. And I was just all right, let's do this. But I noticed she asked me questions that made me start to think about myself, or things that the way that I was so certain about how I was conducting my life, or even we talk about self-care on the show, but I didn't realize that there's 4 different branches of self-care, or multiple branches, personal, spiritual, and she asked me about self-soothing, things that we've touched on, but things I don't think that I've ever really reflected on and been how do I do the things, or if I even do those things. So it definitely was a very reflective, but I had a moment where I was talking about 2 things that I'm right now. I basically am going to switch therapists. I'm in the same app, but I'm trying to find a person that I can relate to more. And 2 things was I said something about she asked me about being in social groups, and I was it's very important to me that because I'm on Facebook a lot, but I'm on forums and stuff. So I'm in poly groups, so I can talk to people, but they're specifically Black poly groups, or I'm in existential groups, but they're specifically Black existential. It's I need that extra oomph, and I was talking about that, and I could feel the dead air, because I was just oh wait, you're not a Black person, because I'm I kind of only talk to Black people, so to me it's just always girl.
You're
But
not
in that moment, or people of color in general, it's so it's very oh okay, that's weird. It just felt weird. But then also a lot of the responses are, obviously it's our first meetings, but it also didn't feel like she was responding to me per se, but rather just every question was kind of just oh okay, and then just moving on, which I don't know if that's what therapists are supposed to do, but at the same time it should be almost we're having a conversation. I felt respond to me as if I said something, and then it wasn't really that. So I'm trying a new person, but all in all, I'm not turned off to the experience whatsoever. If anything, it makes me feel okay, I've gotten a taste of something that I can see could be beneficial for me, and I definitely want to explore that more. I went to some groupinars, or just a seminar online, because everything's online, but it's just listening to certain things that kind of work in what I need. So I feel at least I'm starting on something that this time last year I was theorizing and not actually doing. So it feels good to be doing something, especially during this time, and kind of reinforcing, because I've been watching TV, but I kind of hate TV now because I've been watching so much TV. And I got Hulu. I got Hulu, and I upgraded to live TV, because I haven't had live TV in forever, and I haven't seen a commercial in forever. And every commercial is about COVID-19. But one of the things that I've noticed, which was weird, but then one of the things that I've noticed is just all the commercials are kind of really touching on mental health, and making me realize that I'm not alone in the fact that this is a very heightened, oh my God, what the fuck is happening right now? Because it's it feels like that for me, but sometimes I forget that other people are also oh my God, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah.
So that being in therapy, all that type of stuff has kind of like reinforced this feeling that I'm not alone, which helps because I often do feel like I'm alone, or I just get so caught up in my own head that I forget that other people exist, let alone other people are experiencing similar things. So that's cool. I've been working while indoors to heal several parts of my life, acknowledging trauma, acknowledging like shit that I've been through that I feel like I just don't do, and I'm just like, oh, I'm good, like we're good, like just because like
Gucci.
my thing is just like, did I die? Like no, so I just keep moving. But I mean, even if that's not it, it can be very effective of who I am as a person. So one of those things where I've touched on my relationship with my sister before, but it's kind of been like, man, I don't want to talk about this. Or like I live with her, so a lot of the time it's just like, all right, we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. And I actually saw this meme. I don't even know everything that's on the internet that has a photo. I call it meme, but it's like a thing. And it was just like a mom and daughter, or just like an older person and a younger person sitting on the couch. And like the older person's like, oh, how come we never like talk, or we never joke around and talk about deep things? And there's this huge text bubble where the person's just basically saying like, in order for us to do that, you have to recognize the fact that there was trauma in the past, and I don't want to make you feel guilty, and you don't want to acknowledge the things that you've done. So we're just going to pretend like nothing happened and we'll move on. So that's what it was. And then the person's like, I like this channel. And that's how it ends. And I realized that that's kind of what I've been doing this entire time, which is just like, I don't want to bring up things that have happened in the past because I don't want to make them feel guilty, and I don't want it to lead into an argument. But if this is never addressed, then we can't ever like hope to move on. And there's a strong chance that I won't be living here. And I really thought to myself, living here would come the end of the year. And I really thought to myself, like, the relationships that I value, or just like people in general. And just like with this whole thing, I realize how precious it is to have ties with people, and like, maybe things can be salvaged. So I was like literally washing dishes, and I was like, yeah, we got to talk about my childhood, bro. And like, it ended up being like this like 4-hour long conversation where it was just like, I need you to know certain things were not okay. Certain things still affect me as a child, as an adult. Certain things are like, I can't even see you now and not think about those things. And I think it was kind of eye-opening for both of us, because she did talk about her perspective, and like, obviously I can't know her perspective, but I feel like it was definitely something where I don't walk around my house so much like in a cloud, or like walking on eggshells. Like, I'm addressing things. And I definitely know that's coming from like therapy, but also just coming from a place of just like, man, I'm tired of not living my life to the fullest, or not like feeling like I can stretch my legs and just be myself. So there was that. But also just, I think I've said this before, but really just like paying attention to how I'm talking to myself, and if I'm being performative, if I'm being like, who is the authentic me? So like, I just feel like that has to stretch into who I am, and realizing that, I don't know, like a lot of shit, I just feel like I've been so in my head. So I'm trying to fix stuff and just be proactive in ways that I can't say that I was doing for a really long time. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm just trying to focus on, I think as a millennial, or as all of us now, we know so much that all we can do 90% of the time is be like, man, this fucking sucks. But like, it's because we just have the knowledge. So it's just like, oh man. But I'm trying to think about things that are positive, and like what's good. And it's tough. It's harder to think about what's good than it is to think about all the things that are staring you in the face that are not. But honestly, it's only shit that's keeping me afloat, because if I only think about what's bad, then I'm not going nowhere. But I think definitely in terms of just like life in general, COVID mind is definitely a thing. And if it's good or bad, just try and be positive, and that's what I'm trying to do. So, we out here, we still in it.
I really want to commend everything that you're doing. I feel like with the therapy thing, you why is that oh wow?
I
I
don't
will
know.
commend you from top to bottom. I'm gonna
niggas is
affirm
perceiving
the
me
fuck
right
out of
now.
you.
That shit is crazy.
I do not wish
I
to be
refuse
perceived.
to be perceived.
That's
No
bad
one
for you.
asked for that.
No, but like seriously, like I feel like what you're feeling right now is just like with the therapy thing, and if I'm speaking for you or not getting it right, then like tell me to shut the fuck up. But like
Mhm.
it feels like, okay, what the fuck is this? Am I doing it right? Because you're like, I don't really talk to people about their therapy experiences.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, sure, it's valid to hear about things like that, to know like whether a therapist is like being harmful or not. But I think therapy looks differently for everybody, and you are already doing it right in that you have found a disconnect between you and your therapist and already made the decision to choose a new therapist. Like that's
Yeah.
amazing that you did that already, because somebody could just sit there and just be like, okay, I feel like she's not really listening to me, but like let's go through this thing. Like you're literally like taking life by the, what is it, the reins or
I'm
the
just
rams?
by the horns. I thought it
Is
was
it the
reins or
horns?
no, it's reins. I think
Oh,
it's
like a
reins.
horse. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
taking life by
Yeah.
the reins. And that's great. And like the 4 hour conversation, like, yeah, it's gonna be a fucking 4 hour conversation. It's gonna be mad conversations, to be honest. But the fact that you're just doing
Yeah.
it while washing dishes, that's like mad brave. Like confronting
I
the person who caused you trauma when you were a child is scary. That's
It
scary.
is. And it was really like, I will say it's partially because of the fact that I have an out. And that's coming from like, it's been years and I've never had this conversation because I've never had another place to go.
Mm.
And knowing that like, I will be moving on very soon. And I thought to myself, like, I know if I say something now or if I say nothing in the future, I could very easily just move on and probably never look back. And I didn't know if that was something that I wanted or if it was something like coming from, okay, I've never talked about this. And because we've never talked about this, I don't want to. And I'm just going to keep moving. So I felt like I had to. Like, I was perfectly prepared for the conversation to be like, well, fuck you. I never did anything. And then, like, me knowing, okay, that's where the relationship will lie.
Right.
But I said, I was like, it's not going to be an overnight thing. This is not something where everything is all hunky-dory now, but it does open a channel to like, okay, now we can talk about things and like expect me to talk about things. Like, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm an adult, and talking to me a certain way or feeling a certain way is just like, it's like literally not going to fly anymore. Like, it just can't. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience. And it did give me more of a newfound appreciation for her and like the things that she went through, because I didn't know a lot of things, and you don't know a lot of things until you have those conversations. And it doesn't necessarily make things okay or excusable, but it does remind me that we're all human.
Mm.
And like, that just means niggas just be stumbling to up the hill, downhill. You learn from your mistakes, but it's not like you're gonna stop making them. So
Right.
it definitely made me remember that even though this is somebody, when you're a kid and the adult in your life isn't a human, they're everything. You know what I mean? They're not. You don't think about, oh man, they make mistakes just like me, because when you're a kid, you don't make mistakes until someone tells you made a mistake. Otherwise, you're just doing shit, and it's just wild. So I don't know. It's just like trying to look at someone or life in general from a new lens has been very interesting, and that's kind of been the wave that I'm on right now.
Grab the surfboard, bro. Grab the
That's
surfboard
it,
and ride the
man.
wave.
That's it.
That's like all it is. That's all you can do. No, I appreciate it.
Seriously.
I fucks with the vision. Heavy.
Heavy, man.
The fuck is going on anymore? All right. That's what happens when you have no transition. That's what happens
Yeah,
when
you
you're
just
talking
go,
about something very different from what I'm about to talk about. So you just
you're
start
like,
with it.
oh, let me just clear my throat really loudly because I'm going to talk about something less serious.
Come. You just say come 3 times. It erases everybody's like.
In a cam. Yep. You have to cleanse the palate. I get it. That's what you're doing. You're cleansing the palate of the subject before.
Yeah.
And we got to move on.
All right, now on to Sam presents Ass Media. Like, what the fuck? Childhood trauma. Ass Media. Like, nice. It shows the dimensions of the show.
Exactly.
All All right, so Ass Media is a segment and a play on the term mass media, if you did not realize. I'm taking a break from sharing my personal life while I deal with trauma. This is the year to deal with trauma, bro. Like, let's get it in. Let's not get it in. Let's get it out. Huh, yeah. So in the interim of me doing my traditional fuck me's, I'll be giving book, TV, podcasts, film reviews, all kinds of media that relate to sex, love, dating, and or gender. And these reviews are all spoiler-free reviews. Unless I think it calls for spoilers. So this week I will be reviewing a podcast called The Cheat Code. Here's the synopsis. Directly from their website. It's an incredible true story of an affair between one man and one woman told over 10 episodes. It begins in the aughts, like the 2000s, when T-Mobile sidekicks were still a thing and the only way you could DM someone was through Facebook. Remember those days? And it's still happening over a decade later. What are the questions you've always wanted to ask a person who has made the conscious decision to have an affair? If you listen closely, you may get the answers you've been looking for. So I'm 8 episodes. Right, yeah.
What
It's
a
like
description. That's
juicy,
like, okay.
spicy.
Yeah.
I'm like pulled
Okay.
in. So there are 8 episodes in so far. We're recording this on a Saturday. The 9th episode comes out tomorrow on Sunday, and then the next episode will come out the following Sunday. But yeah, I've listened to all 8 episodes, and I'm fucking engrossed. I'm in it. Actually,
nice.
I think I listened to all 8 episodes the day I heard about the show. I was like, oh
shit.
Niggas be cheating and they be talking about it on the podcast? Let me listen. And I turned it on and I was like, oh, they're black? Oh, let me listen further. And then I started listening. I was like, these accents sound familiar. And they started dropping like, oh, I was taking the E train, blah, blah, blah. These niggas are from Queens, bro. You're cheating. You're from Queens. You're a Generation Xer. Like, I just want to hear all about it. Tell me your tea. So I love the show.
Do you find that you relate with Generation X like more than millennials because we're so close?
Not that I relate more. I just like it reminds me of listening to my aunties talk.
Okay.
So I have like aunties who are like, or like older people in my life who are Gen X and boomers. And it just like it just reminds me of that. Like I just liked it. Like my mom was Generation X. Like I just like hearing about just like how they talk. Like it just varies a little bit from how like New Yorkers who are millennials.
I dead thought that Gen X was Gen Z just now. So I was like, how was your aunt's Gen Z? Okay. That's what my question was framed around. But now I can think about Gen X, and you're absolutely right. Yes,
yeah, we're Generation Y, but because we grew up at the turn of the century or the 1000, whatever, the millennium, that's why we're called millennials. But we're also
because they just
Y.
threw us in there, and I was like, I don't know. Okay, well, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's Generation X, so it's like people from the 70s and things like that. People from the 70s. What a weird way to say that.
They're just there, and they stay there, and sometimes they visit modern day times, but they're from the 70s.
Niggas
Got
from
it.
the 70s be like, anyway. So I like many things about this show. First, I like the people, as I've been saying. It's 2 black people, the Generation Xers, they're from Queens. There's that familiarity in how they speak that's really sonically pleasing to me. And like, I don't think I've really heard that on a podcast before, or a podcast like this. So it's just like, yes. Aunts and uncles talking about their tea.
My people.
Yeah, exactly. And then I really appreciate their chemistry and their delivery. So like they vibe like they're still together, and the description says it's still happening. I don't know what the outcome is. I don't know if these people are still together or whatever is happening, but like there's obviously like they sound like they were a couple at some point. So there's chemistry there. They vibe off each other very well. They also seem like the kind of people who like talking about themselves, which makes for a good podcast. And I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way to either of them, because I'm a podcaster. I obviously like talking about myself to an extent. And I just think like when you host a podcast or when you're into the business of telling stories about your life specifically, there's like a certain element of narcissism that needs to be there, where it's just like, I believe in this so much that I believe that people care about it. and you're telling it in a way as such. Like, I know that this story is not boring, and you can hear that in their voice, and you can also hear them like not holding back.
Yeah.
In their
It's not in an asshole way. And I feel like I want to co-sign that. Okay. Just because I know people who are like starting podcasts or on podcasts, and they're just like, the most uncomfortable part is talking about myself. And I was like, yeah, because you're the type of person who just like hearing yourself or even having this conversation makes you uncomfortable, which is totally understandable. But you have to like push past that to know like, I've had this conversation. If this was somebody else talking about this, I'd want to hear it. So like, I want to have this conversation so other people can hear it. Right. That's what it is.
Exactly.
It's not like, damn, I smell my own shit and I am the shit. So listen up. It's not that.
Yeah, it's not. Sometimes though. Sometimes we'd be like, yo, we're mad. Let's be listening back to episodes like, yo,
we're fucking hilarious. But let's not. Let's pretend to be
smart on this show, bro. But like, no. So it also seems like they have a good relationship with the producer, and both the participants and the producer. Just because I hear the producer in the room, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And it's like, you have to have a good, like, there has to, like, the producer has to be doing something to like let these people, allow for a safe space for these people to open up. Because if it's like some stush person in the room who's like, y'all be cheating, like, that's not gonna allow for good storytelling to happen. So you can tell that there's like a certain level of intimacy there. And I'm not sure how it was recorded. To me, it sounds like it was recorded on one day and split up between different parts, but I'm not sure. But whoever is like directing or guiding the conversation, whether it be the participants, the producer, or both, they're both doing a really good job, or all three of them are doing a really good job, or more are doing a really good job of laying out the story in terms of like a narrative. So kudos to that. And then also, because it is cut up into different parts and there's different moments in the episode, the editor is also doing a good job of building tension and setting up cliffhangers, which is why I listened to all 8 episodes in a day.
Like, I gotta know. I gotta know.
Gotta fucking know. I also appreciate the honesty. So there's no shame. They're just putting things plainly. They're not mincing words. So they're just like, and then I decided I was gonna cheat. And I was like, oh damn, did you? Did you? Or this is what I wanted.
Real shit.
This is what I wanted of the person who I was gonna cheat with. Like, just not even like being like, oh, you know, and then I was thinking that like, it's just really, they're just laying it out there on the table, and I really appreciate that, especially for this kind of story. Also, like I said earlier, it began in the aughts, so what is that, like 20 years ago at this point?
Yeah.
There's a level of reflection in how they talk about these things, and you can tell that they've allowed for themselves to reflect on it over the past 20 years. And you know what? There might be some people who don't, but I appreciate the fact that they do, because I think if I was listening to this and them just being like from an immature aspect of it, like why I did this or why I was feeling this way, I'd be like, oh, this is a bit regressive. Like, I don't really care. Like, because you're already kind of approaching, because everybody thinks like cheating is morally wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, people have done it. Even if you do it, it's morally wrong. So you're already going into this, even though these are your protagonists, you're already going into it thinking like, you guys are the bad guys.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys are the bad guys. But like so like if they weren't in tuned with why they were doing it and being very open and honest about that and why it was wrong, that would be hard to listen to for me. But
yes, exactly.
So I appreciate that self-reflection. Like, some of the things the themes they bring up are like a lack of communication skills and poor relationship models growing
up. Oh, so they're very like self-reflective, and they're like, I'm not trying to say I'm without any type of, I did what I did, but at the same time, I know what I did in and of itself. Okay.
Exactly. Which is also even good in that direction, because it would be weird if they were just like, what I did was wrong, I'm so sorry, the devil made me do it. Like, if there was no, like, if it was just overly, I'm wrong, that would be strange too.
The devil made me do it. Ooh. Oh.
Devil.
You know how it be.
Yeah, sometimes the devil will be making people do things, apparently. I've not experienced that, but apparently that's the thing. Things I like about the content. So because of the time frame, that it's the story happened, it kind of like serves as an exploration of intimacy in the early ages of social media and the early ages of like what cell phones used to be. So it was interesting to reflect on that. Yeah, sidekicks. It was interesting to reflect on that. And then also it like brought a sense of me being able to, even though like they were but in their 30s and I was like a teenager, it was still like, oh, I can also reflect on this kind of
exactly
nostalgia and how I used to use Facebook to like flirt with people.
Oh,
How
man.
people used to use Facebook.
When Facebook was like a college thing, so I upped my age like so much, and I was like, I'm in here too. God, the things I did on Facebook still haunt me. I'm in so many fucking groups that are just topics, but like they were this. Oh my
They were
God.
just
Anyway,
jokes. Yeah, Facebook was a weird
yeah,
place. It was fun though. It was fun.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think I would like. It was just like thirst traps in the form of statuses, like letting people know that I was available in some sort of way, or I was like relatable, or like, oh man, I'm so quirky and I'm so funny, and like trying to like knowing exactly who would comment on those statuses and just like
you were like
all
pointed
right,
in
let
what
it roll
you were
in.
doing.
Yeah, let it roll.
Yeah. Oh my God. Man, I did the same exact fucking thing.
But we all did, and like that's what they talk about on the show, which is like that's really interesting to explore because these people were like in their 30s and we were like what 15 or something like that. We were both doing the
and
same
we were all doing
thing.
the same thing because it was new. So we were all just like being our most inner self, but like just whack and not realizing how whack we were being. Just a first. Oh my God. Like
boy.
baby technology. So we all acted infantile and dumb. Not dumb, but infantile.
I think it's cute what we all did. Good for all of us.
Of course.
We did things. In addition to me liking that about the content, I just love drama in other people's lives. I don't like drama in my life at all. Like I never have any drama going on. Like there's never any new tea about me. Like hardly ever.
That's true.
I will watch the fuck out of any reality show. Are you kidding?
I love drama. I love to watch drama. I am the person with the like newspaper just pretending to read it, but shit's happening. So I'm just like, oh my God, they getting crazy up in here.
When
but
start arguing on the bus and I turn my music
down
and be like, okay,
you just sit there and be like, you're pretending to bop it. You're like, damn, okay,
what girl? Niggas arguing back and forth in tweets or on Facebook. Yes, the fuck
I'm in it. I scroll back. I'm like, I wonder where this came from. Now I know their whole history. I'm looking at old pictures. I'm like, that's where that, okay. Yes, but I don't want any of that here. I don't want any of that in my zone. But watching it, researching it, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's so entertaining. And this show
really
does not fail. The show does not fail on that front. There's an abundance of tea. And it's kind of like that tea where it's just like, damn, okay, niggas is wild. And then you think they can't wild out anymore, and they kind of do.
They just OD. Oh my gosh.
Or there's just like more wild things. Like there's just more drama stacked on top of it. I also appreciate the fact that they tell the story. So there's no outside like guidance from a producer or a narrator or anything like that. Which I think is beneficial in some podcasts, but I like the fact that it's just them in this podcast. Mostly. I have comments about that later, about how it's like making me feel in the later episodes. But yeah, I think that it just being them allows the listener to have a really, really intimate experience because they're literally just hearing about it from their points of view. So it's like, you want to get in the mind of a cheater? Here is like literally that mind.
Got it.
The music selection is Chef's Kiss. I'll use one example to illustrate this. So there's one anecdote where, so the woman's name is Andrea and the man's name is Jason. Andrea is talking about putting the pussy on Jason for the first time, and a song called This Pussy Be Yankin' starts playing. This pussy be yanking. This pussy be yanking. This pussy be yanking.
Oh yeah, nah, I got it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm already convinced. I'm like, this is something that I need to get into immediately. But that pussy be yanking, that's the cherry on top. First of all,
maybe that's the name of this episode, huh? Pussy be yanking. Let me write that down. We'll find out. We'll find out in a couple of days. Yeah. Okay, so I love this podcast. I cannot give it enough praises. There are, however, things that I'm not vibing with, and I'm curious after, because I definitely encourage people to listen to this. I'm curious to see how other people are feeling about said things. So
Okay.
it's 8 episodes so far, and it's just these two people's points of view, like I said earlier, which I do really appreciate, but it's starting to make me feel a little bit like, So around episode 7, some of the stories I was finding myself a little bit lost. Like, like when people talk and they can
know
just
each other.
yeah, and they can just spiral. Like right now I know for a fact that we can do that, and it'll just be like nothingness to anybody else, but something that really makes sense to us. I don't think
Yes.
they're spiraling into a very deep spiral, but what happened in episode 7 is that it was like a story within a side story, and I was already following the other story, and I know that in their consciousness they can go back and forth between two stories and it still be seamless, but I just like don't know you guys. So I'm just
Yeah.
like,
So it's
okay,
coming
wait,
from like what?
yeah, where are we going into in this? And then like I think people have a thing of doing like half references where it's like, and you know that, and that is like saying that is an implication of a whole thing that yes,
Yeah.
Jason and Andrea know, but Sam don't know that. Sam don't know what the fuck y'all is talking about or what y'all are. And then sometimes it's like, and we'll get to that later. And
They
I don't really
don't.
like that. I don't know. It's not that they
Okay.
don't, because there's 2 episodes left, so I'm sure that they will, or at least I hope that they will. But I just don't like that. Like
Okay.
I
Like a
prefer
call
more.
to a future episode.
Yeah, I prefer more
Okay.
standard. Like here is an actual, like you've led me to this place, and here's an actual cliffhanger, and I'm expecting, but not like mid conversation. We'll get to that. And I understand, like even like I did that earlier in this episode with the current events, but it
But
happens
you
so
did it
often that I'm just
immediately.
like, huh?
But you also just like followed it up immediately. It's not
Oh,
like in a future episode. It's like I'm gonna tell you
yeah.
about more of that later. Then you say one thing and then you keep going.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. So I get why they're doing it in conversation, but as a listener, it's a little bit confusing for me.
Okay.
Then I found myself yearning for the points of views of the exes or a balancing voice. So
Mm.
there'd be times where it'd be like for example, Jason would be like, "Oh, and then my ex did this thing," and then Andrew would be like, "Yeah, she was wilding on that," and I'm like,
What?
"What is she? What is she?" No, they're saying the thing.
Yeah.
I just
What
don't
if
want
she
to spoil
wasn't
it.
wilding?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know how she felt about it. I don't know what encouraged her to wow. Like I could say some of the things that she did don't sound good, but also some of the things that you guys did don't sound good, and I'm hearing your perspective and I'm getting that level of understanding, but I'm not getting that from the people that you keep mentioning. And then I was like, all right, you getting me tight though, because like are you just like shitting on good sis or bad? Like I don't know her. So I'm just like
Yeah. And what if
empathizing.
she's just like sitting there like this good up person and we're just why did I say
Yeah.
good up? Who am I? What the fuck?
Goody
Anyway,
goody.
this great person
Yeah.
and we're just like, yeah, we root for them, but we don't know. Oh
Yeah.
man. That's
And I think
true.
I'm curious to see how other people listen to that, because I think it's in my nature to always like, and sometimes I even hold this back, like when I'm listening to my friends or my family talk or whatever, I think I jump to what the other side is doing or thinking, or just like trying to balance it out or get both sides. I don't know why I do
Mm-hmm.
that. I just do. And I was trying to do that here, and then I couldn't. And the fact that she can't speak for herself, it just makes me like kind of like turn against them a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if she was violent.
Because to be honest with you, because the full picture makes a huge difference. It really does. Like,
Right.
and I get if you've gone through a couple of things where you're just like, I thought something and then I found out something else and it changed the game. After a while, you're just like, nah, like I'm gonna hold my reservations until like
Right.
I can hear something else. It's still a good story. I'm sure it doesn't take away from like what's
No.
going on. But like in terms of just knowing that they're probably not the most right in the situation, I can see how that could be like, all right, man, let me just suspend my disbelief for a couple seconds so I can continue to enjoy this.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. My next point is very closely tied to this. So I mentioned earlier that there's at least one producer in the room, just because I can hear a different voice off mic speaking,
Mm-hmm.
mostly laughing, sometimes speaking. Excuse me. Yeah, and the producer chimes in with laughter and short sentences sometimes when it's appropriate. Sometimes I think this is fun. So they were talking about the sidekick or whatever, and there's like a nostalgic exchange between either the producer or the participants or whatever. And somebody's like, "Remember the sidekick?" And they all laugh, even the person off mic laughs, and that made me feel like I'm in the producer, like we're all laughing. Yeah, I remember the sidekick too. Yeah, we all kikiing or whatever. Sometimes, and it actually wasn't like, it seems like the producer kind of like chimed in more as the conversation got juicier, probably because like it was just getting juicy up in there. And this wasn't happening in the beginning, but I noticed it in some of the later episodes. The producer will react to just things that they're saying, but when they react to things that they're saying about their exes, once again, I'm like, we gotta be objective.
Who are these people? I get it now that I'm hearing. I'm like, first of all,
we gotta be objective up in here. So like, what was one thing that happened? Oh man, I thought I wrote it down. I don't even remember what happened. But like, I think it was just like maybe another like she was wildin' moment, and I heard the producer laugh, and I'm like, damn, now you laughing at good sis who can't even speak for herself. Here we go again. And I don't even know what the intention for the producer laughing was. Like, it could have been anything. It could have just been like his delivery of that was funny, or a shock laugh or something like that. But just the fact that I could hear it, then I'm like judging everybody in the situation. And I would have preferred to just like let that be objective, because now I'm like, oh, okay, the show is now against good sis.
Yes.
So everybody's against good sis. And I gotta find good sis like me on Facebook. I gotta go find good sis on Facebook, and we're gonna make a counter podcast. And
we need to find her and let her know, look, this is your time. Tell your story, because clearly they don't give a fuck. So we need to talk about this shit. Let them know.
Exactly. So yeah, I think I would prefer it if I did not hear the producer during those moments, but I'm curious about how other people felt about that. Either way, all in all, I would definitely recommend this podcast. I appreciate the candidness, the intimacy, the music, the storytelling, the queensness of it all, the blackness. That's all really, really cool. And then shout out to the production company behind the show. The production company behind the show is Domino Sound, which is a woman-based. Oh my God, it lives in
woman-based. It's based inside of a woman.
A woman-owned, Brooklyn-based podcast studio that aims to bring equity to the world of podcasting by promoting acceptance, inclusion, and awareness through authentic storytelling. Their team consists of, I've met some of them. Their team consists of folks who are queer, Black, Jamaican. So like, those are all good things that I appreciate. So definitely support and check them out. And the link to the cheat code will be in the show notes for this episode.
Good name too.
Yeah, it is a good name. And
that's a dope name.
The graphic is cool too. Can you make it any brighter in there?
In my room?
Yeah. That's better.
I turned on the computer screen. No. So I have a terrible light in here.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
This is just my light. Like,
oh,
light
that's the
really
light.
dim.
Oh,
yes.
Rod. Okay.
I know.
I
will change it soon. Or we'll only record in the daytime when the good sun is coming through.
we were supposed to, and then
true. This didn't end up being crazy.
They wanted to be difficult. All right, so that's it for our Fuck Me segment, and that's it for Sam Presents Ask Media. Now we're going into Fuck You, the segment where we read your listener letters. If you would like to ask us for some advice, share your hotels, rant against the white cis het patriarchy, you can send your thoughts to i2podcast@gmail.com. Please include your pronouns. Also, because we are in the future, you can also leave us a voicemail. We'll play it and respond to it on the show. Do that, you can drop us a line at 404-491-9158. That is 404-491-9158.
So this letter comes from Lindsay. Pronouns are she and her. She writes, "Hey host, first off, I have to tell y'all how much I love your podcast. Thank you so much. Second, after listening to the episode where Rebecca, that's me guys, described the end of her relationship and y'all dragged off old boy to the grave and back, which was hella moisturizing to listen to because yes, drag these garbage niggas. We love to see it. I'm glad we both did like the clap, like it needs to be done. I was like, wow, Amy, I'm glad that we can relate. I'm a little over a year out of a narcissistically abusive relationship that I'm still going to therapy for and actively undoing the damage of every day. I drew a lot of similarities between the way Rebecca described her ex and my ex emotional abuser. He definitely sounds like he fits the description of a narcissist or at the very least an emotional abuser. I wrote and published an article about my experience a few months back in the hopes that it would find its way to the people in my position. I firmly believe that more conversations need to be had surrounding signs of emotional abuse and ways to heal from it properly so people can keep themselves safe. I hope that I'm not overstepping by offering this resource because I know that abuse is a sensitive topic, specifically if that is not how Rebecca chooses to classify her experience. However, I'm hoping that her and or your listeners find this helpful. Lindsay goes on to suggest that we do an episode on narcissistic abuse if we haven't done one already. We have. The episode is called Dating a Narcissist, and we're going to link that and Lindsay's article about her experience in the show notes. Lindsay continues and says, in any case, I found the hardest part of my healing process was not feeling like I had someone to listen and truly understand from an experiential standpoint. So, Rebecca, if you need to, you can also dead just like hit me up to talk. Says, aw, validation is important, community is important, and I offer what I can. Also, PS, not for nothing, I'm a queer Black femme, New York based poet, a dope one, like nationally ranked dope. Okay. I also published a
Yes.
first called titled Salt to Taste, which is available through Amazon and Barnes and Noble. It's a collection of poetry following the journey of unlearning love as self-sacrifice as a Black femme. She's very broke and very cute. So feel free to, we'll tell our listeners to buy the book and book her. So there's going to be an Amazon link in the bottom, a Barnes and Noble link, and yeah, check out the show notes. But first of all, oh wow, so it's so interesting to have something addressed to me. I don't really know. I am very aware of the fact that I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. I have had 4 serious relationships. I'm in one currently. Unfortunately, 2 out of 4 of them have been what I would call abusive. Definitely with my most recent one before this one, it was emotionally abusive, and he was just very much a narcissist, very much like a gaslighter, just a trash human. And then my first relationship was sexually abusive, physically abusive, and emotionally abusive. So I think I kind of said this a little bit in my fuck you, which is interesting. I don't I struggle with saying that I am a victim or that I have been in these situations and to take them more seriously than I should. And I say this to say that because I know people who have been in very traumatic situations and very like life altering all that type of stuff. And this, wow, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I will, because I feel like if it's important for other people to hear, I think I want to say it. But it's like in those moments, it's almost like my trauma isn't enough for me to join these conversations because I'm able to like move around, if that makes any sense, or kind of like move in a way that like I don't look like what I've been through, if that makes any sense. So I feel like because I'm not like so damaged, but I am, because I'm holding it all in and I'm not like saying anything about it. But in that sense, I've always been like, oh, I can't join these conversations because I want to give that space to somebody who is like more hurt, if that makes any sense. But when you're saying it to me, it makes me double back and be like, okay, no, like my pain is real too. It's something that's happened to me, and it's definitely was in an emotionally abusive relationship. And there's so much to unpack because what I do is I just put it back on myself, and I always think about the ways that I could have avoided it, the ways that I could have like been better, or et cetera, et cetera. And I have to always think about the community and the people that I reach and the people who talk to me. And that's why a big reason why when I do this show, I get personal, because the feedback that I get and people going, I've gone through this too, it not only validates other people, but it validates me in the sense that it's just like, okay, this was crazy, or this was a lot, or this is a lot. So first of all, I will talk to you, sis. Hit me up. The Instagram, my DMs is open. But also, like, community is so important. And like, first you have to recognize it. then you have to not minimize it, because that's just something that I do to cope, but also I'm just the type of person to step back and let other people take space. And I just forget that, like, even if I'm not if I'm not doing it, I'm still suffering from it. So I need to start like reaching out and having these conversations. But yeah, I can definitely admit now, or realize now looking back, that there was definitely a lot of abuse. And I'm learning to not make that my fault. And it's no one's fault. It's not your fault. It's their fault, but it's
Yeah, I was
not your
like,
fault.
oh,
Yeah, I was about to say, it's not your fault. It's not anybody who's experienced abuse. You know what you did. Everybody's doing the best that they can with what they have
and what they know,
and what they don't. And
right.
that's what I'm like. You know, I people should definitely realize that shit happens and it sucks, but it shouldn't stop you from moving on, living your life to the fullest, loving again, trusting again, all of those things. I refuse to let people who have tried to take my happiness from me and tried to take my freedom and my will from me. I refuse to let them win. But again, that's not easy. That's easier said than done, because in a lot of ways they do win. I mentally fuck up, you know what I mean? But we're gonna keep going. We're gonna build our community, and I really appreciate you reaching out to talk to me. And if anybody feels the same way, like I'll talk, girl, Lindsay, we chatting, but if anybody wants to reach out and talk to me about what's going on with them, I'm like the least intimidating human being on the world. And I will, like, if you DM me, like, niggas be asking me if I'm okay lately, and I'm just like, nah, let's talk about it. Like, it's not gonna be some generic stuff. I'm definitely here to talk, because I know how important it is to be able to pick up the phone or pick up like Instagram or something and talk to, even if it's a stranger like me or somebody you know, and feel like you're being seen. So thank you for seeing me, Lindsay. Thank you for sharing your story, but also, you know, that's what I'm here for. So yay. Awesome.
Aw, what a sweet moment that was.
I know. I feel like, damn, you know, like I want to hug. We hugged, you know, we hugged over here. We don't hug anymore, but over that phone, there you
Outreach
go.
our arms really strangely.
We did.
For like
Yes.
the let me hold you down video. Yeah, that was really, really sweet, Lindsay. And I'm glad that you're coming to a place of not minimizing your trauma, because it doesn't feel traumatic enough. I just had one point on that I wanted to speak about, which is like the thought that you have to be like some version of fucked up, which kind of reminds me of that So Severe thing from the Title IX
Yes,
regulation.
exactly. Yeah.
But you have to be like this version of a fucked up self, or what you perceive a fucked up self to look like, to say that you have trauma. And I think that's kind of like, in not so many ways, defining yourself by trauma, or defining other people by trauma, because like, if you have trauma, it doesn't necessarily mean that that defines your outward self or defines all of you or all of your behaviors or anything like that. So yeah, it's good that you came to that realization. My leg hurts, so
that was very real, bro. I think it's hurting.
I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, once again, thank you, Lindsay, and we'll definitely link to your resources in the show notes for this episode. Lindsay wrote that a while ago. We missed it for some reason. I'm not sure how that happened, but sorry for taking so long to read that, but thank you. Never late is better. Yeah, thank you so much. That's the end of this episode. If it made you laugh, transition.
Come.
Make just like a soundbite that's like come.
And that's how you know, like, that's it. Come. Oh man, Beethoven was onto something with that shit, but all right.
Thanks for going there with me. If this
Of
episode
course.
made you laugh, helped you learn something, made you feel good, made you question yourself in a good way, or positively moved you in any sense, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. If you would like a nickname to go along with that, leave your first name. It's also cool to leave your pronouns if you do that, but you are not obligated to do so. And let everyone you know that you love these hoes. Also, if you're on YouTube, you can do that by subscribing to a motherfucker out here. Leaving a like,
Hey.
leaving a comment like, oh, good shit, or leaving a comment like, yes, I disagree. That's not how you do the cum song or whatever you disagree with. I don't know. We appreciate all of you.
And we do. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can do so at Hoe Uprising without the G on Twitter, Hoe Uprising on Instagram and Facebook. And you can join our Facebook group. It is growing. There's people out there we want to have conversations. And you can search Hoe Uprising, CUMMUNITY community. Come. We do like to say come. Head to inneruprising.com to sign up for weekly goodies via our newsletter, pay a hoe, or check out our merchandise. And if you would like to follow me personally, you can follow me on Instagram at The Darkest Timeline and on Twitter at Exist and Crisis.
You can follow me at SlamRid on Instagram and Twitter, and Carmen Sam Diego on Instagram for travel and food photos and the stories that went along with them back when travel was a thing. Hope food remains a thing. That'd be nice. Anyway,
that'd be awesome.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.